Hello and welcome to the Bears and Beers podcast.
Welcome to the unofficial podcast of the Sydney Bears Australian Ice Hockey League team. My name is Gordon Goodenough. I'm joined here very closely by Matt Wiggins. Matt, how are you going?
Good, mate. Near neighbour. Welcome to my house.
Yeah, thank you. We are recording this on Tuesday. Issues with the Wi-Fi where I'm staying temporarily here in Sydney. I no longer live here. Meant that we couldn't record last night. So thank you for your hospitality.
Just for the record, after tonight, you no longer live here either.
You two look very happy there, I must say.
Yeah. Well, we are joined by Nathan Graham, who I reckon if anyone could bring Jason Robertson to the Sydney Bears, put him in a Sydney Bears jersey, I reckon it's Nathan Graham, the team governor and director of hockey operations. How are you going?
Yeah, quite well, thank you guys. Look, if he keeps behaving like this, I'm not sure I'd be interested in him. To be fair, hopefully there's some news overnight and we can retain him. But yeah, we'll have to see. And I'm just about to crack a West Coast IPA from my good friends at Beer Fontaine over in Botany. So a big shout out to Jeremy, who I have no doubt is listening tonight. So. Here's to the team at Beer Fontaine, and great to join you, gents.
We both have our teas. We're teetotalers tonight, so we're all set. But
tonight only.
Thanks for your generosity. We did have another big weekend of Australian Ice Hockey League action. 10 games over 3 days. And we'll get into the Bears games soon. But first, Nathan, did you want to take us through the out-of-town scoreboards?
I certainly can. Kicking off Friday night in Canberra at the AIS, the Canberra Brave had 10 different scorers in a 10-1 defeat of the Adelaide Adrenaline. Over to Saturday, the Rhinos rallied in the third to beat the Lightning 8-6 in Erina. Raphael Bastille, 5 goals, 2 assists. Danik Bouchard, 1 goal, 3 apples. Zach Schenker had a 5-point night. Hops, Hebert, Campbell, all with 3-point nights for the Lightning. A 3-goal third for the Mustangs saw them beat Newcastle 4-3 in Melbourne. The Brave were 4-1 winners over Adelaide in the second game of that series, and a popular ex-Bear, Jake Ratcliffe, he had a hat-trick in that game, all 3 goals coming on the power play. And finally on Saturday in Perth, the Thunder defeated the Ice Dogs 4-2. Over to the Sunday games, the North Stars were winners over the Mustangs 5-2. Trinker with a standout performance, 940 save percentage in that game. Melbourne Ice, they had a huge day at the office, 14-3 winners. That's right, 14-3 winners over the Rhinos. Colton Schindel, who was very prominent against us on Saturday for potentially the wrong reason, 7 points. David Booth and Tyrone Bronte 5 points each. Josh Adkins 4 points. The Ice Dogs returned serve against the Thunder 8-4. They were 4 for 7 on the power play. Cale Costa had 6 assists in that game. Lakowitz, Dunn and Vertez all contributing a handful of points. And that is the wrap-up of the non-Bears games for the weekend, gentlemen.
Very well done, Nathan Graham.
Any other points you got from the other non-Bears games, Matt?
I think Nathan covered it perfectly.
Yeah, I thought the Melbourne Ice 76 shots against the Rhinos. That was dominant. And side note, it was a bit of a surprise to see Nathan Vertez suiting up for the Ice Dogs in Perth. He he of course came over as an import for the Perth Thunder a couple of years ago in 2024. Let's get into that Saturday game, the Bears Melbourne Ice, and it ends up being a 6-4 win for the Melbourne Ice. And you can look at that scoreline and think, well, that's, you know, the Melbourne Ice coming in with a full strength lineup and taking it to the Bears and getting the win, kind of dominating. But when you when you break it down, as we will, you know, the Bears went up 3-0. We had a Nick Seitz in the first period with a goal to take that into the break. Dexter Moselle and Lucas Herman then scored. Herman short-handed. Tyrone Bronte got one back for the Ice, and then Nick Seitz got his second for the Bears. And then the third period saw 5 unanswered goals: Webster, Bronte, Booth, Caruana, and then an empty netter from Booth. Let's get into it, gents. Your thoughts first, Matt, on the game.
Yeah, hugely disappointing. It really was a game of 2 periods and then a third, wasn't it? We played so well and then ran into penalty trouble. I think we were a grand total of 50 penalty minutes across the entire game. But the Ice finished their 10 power plays by converting 2 of them. Just from an entirely unbiased standpoint, our boys just ran out of gas. They were killing penalties pretty much all of the third and large parts of the second.
Yeah, your thoughts, Nathan?
I really enjoyed this game through 2 periods. Matt and I actually had the pleasure of each other's company and that of quite a number of our sponsors. Through 2 periods, I think we were feeling pretty good about ourselves. The beer was cold, the pizza was hot, everyone was having a good time. The rink had a really great energy to it. And then all of a sudden, a lot of those nice things disappeared. I think, look, Matt's probably covered the summary of the game. I thought the first period we dominated defensively. I thought we were excellent to start the game. Managed the puck well. Good controlled exits. I thought we were quite commanding in that period. Perhaps we should have maybe put 1 or 2 more away. I thought overall it was quite a polished, start to the game. Obviously, Nick opened the scoring after Toby Gilchrist took that double minor. But probably coming off the back of some of the momentum that we built last weekend, I definitely thought we started the game really well. Heading into the second, there was the goat Schindel incident, which I think came quite early. That must have been in the first minute or 2.
It was, yeah.
Of the game. Subsequently, we had a huge kill. I think we were short-handed for 7 minutes thereafter, including a 5-on-3, and that was such an impressive sort of team effort to keep the Ice scorers at bay. Then Dex made it 2-0. There was a neutral zone turnover and a really great catch from Ruben Nalos, who laid off really well for a nice finish from Dex, and all of a sudden, we're probably feeling particularly good about ourselves. Then obviously the third, Herms scored a shorty after a really nice intercept with high pressure from Seitzy, who eventually shot it into a sheeter. He made the save, but then the rebound came out that he slid to Herms, and the rink was certainly alive. It was 3-0, and we were all feeling great. And then it slowly started to turn, back towards the Ice, as Matt said. Some ill discipline probably contributed to that. There was probably some moments in that game where we just started to maybe mismanage the game a little bit. We coughed up a puck in our own zone that Bronte ended up scoring on. But then Nick made it 4-1 at the end of the period. Puck jack, Gus took it up, made a really patient play to find Nick, and heading into the second intermission, yeah, it was all positive ultimately.
Kimmer had 2 unbelievable periods, and I did make a note that at the end of the second, all the boys were, straight over to Kimmer before they went in the dressing rooms. That he had just such an outstanding 2 periods. But as you said, Nathan, that was really where the good times stopped rolling. Worth noting, we lost Tommy Lander to a very nasty injury in the first as well. And then off the back of Schindler and the Goat getting game misconducts, with 2 very senior, experienced players down 1 minute into the second period.
Yeah, look, I think that passage of play that saw Goat and Schindler get ejected. There's probably some people out there that would look at Schindler's production as a player and think as good as Goat is, maybe that's a really that's a really manageable exchange for us, having Schindler out. But with the way that we're forced to rotate our defensive group at the moment, I think losing Goat, really put us under some pressure. For the rest of the game, I think it made life a little bit difficult for that D group and certainly the coaches in managing, the way that the defensive rotations unfolded for the rest of the game. Your point about Kimmer, I think, is spot on. I feel like Kimmer did his job and more throughout this game. Perhaps the scoreline may not suggest that, but he was really called upon throughout parts of the second and certainly the third period. And overall, I thought he had a really strong game. I'm not sure if you'd agree with that, Gordy.
Yeah, well, a 23 shot second period for the Melbourne Ice, and he concedes just the single goal. I thought he was huge, and yeah, that's a big reason why the team came up to him. Before before they left the ice. But I think as well, you mentioned about Goat, and I completely agree. We saw it was a 5-on-3 power play that the Melbourne Ice had in the third period, and Tyrell Clare was one of the players in the box for the Bears. So suddenly the Bears end up rolling out Kevin Sadowski, who just come off a plane 2 days before from overseas, has barely got his legs under him, and suddenly he's the sole defenseman out there on the penalty kill with 2 forwards out there with him, and it's you could see that moment as being almost an insurmountable challenge, and we held them off at bay for so long, and it was a really brave effort. But yeah, they ended up conceding, and then as soon as the game got to that 4-3 level, you could see the players, after killing all those penalties and being on the penalty kill for so long, you've got guys just bunched over, taking in some big ones, and it was just a matter of time. The Melbourne Ice brought a pretty big lineup for an away side. They brought a big squad, and credit to them. They managed to have enough in the tank, and I wouldn't say that necessarily that they outplayed us, but I do think based on the full kind of picture of the game, you can't take away that they also probably deserve to get a win, and it was their first win at the Macquarie Ice Rink since May 2017 against the Bears. So congrats to them, but that did definitely felt deflating, post game, and you could see the players really felt it too.
Looking at some positives, I thought Ruben Narlos had an outstanding game on Saturday, and without giving too many spoilers away, he certainly carried that on Sunday. So that was a huge bright spot for me. Ruben had an awesome weekend and really laid the foundation for his great work on Sunday with his game on Saturday.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think going back to one of your comments earlier, Gordy, the guys were very, very disappointed, perhaps as disappointed as I've seen them this season. I think there was certainly a consensus feeling that we probably certainly opened the door at the very least for the Ice to come back and give their top guys the opportunity to be top guys. They gave up two power play goals in the third. That probably came, after penalties that weren't really required, I think. I thought, speaking to the guys after the game, there was a general feeling that we more than skated with the ice throughout that game, and we proved that we do have an ability to match up well against, let's face it, now that they've got their full contingent, at least on paper, one of the strongest teams in the league. It was just an unfortunate set of circumstances there that unfolded, to allow them to get back in the third period, and then all of a sudden, they capitalised on their opportunities where perhaps earlier in the game, we probably had additional opportunities to do the same, and we just didn't quite, we didn't roll with, a clear ability to really put them away. There were probably times in the second where we had opportunity to do so, and for whatever reason didn't convert. So I thought the ice did well. They pushed hard in the third and got the result, but there were probably some contributing factors there that the guys would like the opportunity to control again.
Yeah, and I think, you look at the game, and speaking to the coaching staff before the game on Sunday, I was chatting with Nico Demopoulos, who said, the one thing that they kind of took away was this wasn't a skill issue why we lost the game. It wasn't like we were outskilled and overmatched and outplayed. These are issues that we can fix. These are mental errors and issues, taking penalties at bad times and things like that. Those things can be fixed pretty quickly. And that's, there was a good opportunity to kind of do that on the Sunday. Would you agree with that, Nathan, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I would agree with all of that. There are some positive takeaways out of that Melbourne Ice game. I thought, again, going back to what I said earlier, I thought for certainly the first period, the entirety of the first period and the vast majority of the second, we were the better team for the majority of that, of those first two periods. We probably needed to come out of that with a little bit more production. You are playing against the Sheeta, who, we know that he brings quality night in, night out. Again, this goes back to that point where we probably need to show, an ability to really, put the foot on the throat, so to speak, and finish teams when you've got that momentum in game. But I think, I'd certainly agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, the final note I made on the game was outlasted, definitely not outplayed.
Yeah, and Matt, the third periods as well. That's been something that the Bears, including that game, have had some issues with.
Yeah, I mentioned to you both, we've been unfortunate in the games against the Mustangs, the Dogs, and against the Ice to concede goals in bunches, but all three of those teams have, got considerable firepower and have shown numerous times over this season that they've got the capability of scoring goals in bunches. So unfortunately we were on the receiving end of it, but I'm sure that's something that Riza, Nico and the boys will be looking at in terms of, how do we make sure that we shut the door and close games out. But tough one to swallow on Saturday.
We ready to move into Sunday?
Yes, please.
I think, sorry guys, the only comment that I would make, Matt, you touched on Tommy Lander. Obviously he went down, some incidental head contact. There was certainly no malice or anything in the play. Tommy is okay. For those that are listening, Tommy is okay. He will miss some time, but he is okay. He's getting support and treatment via our staff, and best wishes to him and his family, and looking forward to seeing him back hopefully sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's move on to Sunday's game, and it was a little bit different. It was a pretty. The Bears scored first again. That's the sixth game in a row that the Bears have scored the opening goal of the game, which is pretty impressive. But I can remember after I think it was 11 games, we had only scored the first goal 3 times. So that was a little bit of an issue, or a difference certainly from 2024. And now we've turned that around. We've scored the first goal of the game more than 50% of the games we played in. We've done that 9 times and conceded 8. So we did that again. 37 seconds into the game, Logan Brody gets a goal off a broken play, but it was a good play by Louis Olive and Dexter Moselle, causing havoc, and Logan Brody finishes. That was all that we saw for the first period, and I'd had a chat with Brisbane Lightning head coach Nathan Dale before the game, and I brought up the stat that we talked about last week, how Brisbane Lightning games tend to be high scoring. They always involve kind of 10 goals or more. And then I joked that perhaps we could be in for a 1-0 defensive masterclass. What were your takeaways from the start of the game, Nathan?
Hard work. I think throughout the lineup, guys were really skating with intent. We were very good on the forecheck. You could tell that they wanted to bounce back after the Saturday. I think one thing that I noticed in this game, particularly watching it back afterwards, you'll see we put a lot of pressure on the net. We were attacking in numbers. I thought the defence was probably a little bit more active on the Sunday, but that is potentially due to the nature of the matchup. With all due respect, but I think when you look at this game, we got contributions up and down the lineup. A lot of the goals that we scored were a direct result of good hard work, good pressure, not giving up on puck battles. I think we put Brisbane under a lot of pressure, sustained pressure. They were turning over a lot of pucks. They looked quite panicked at times. From that perspective, and certainly a relentless forecheck perspective, I thought this was maybe one of the best performances that we've put together all season. I wouldn't say some of the hockey at times was the prettiest hockey, but it was certainly very, very effective. And when we did give them a sniff, obviously Hayden at the other end was absolutely brilliant in net, and he was also well supported. So I think just good, honest, hard work and work ethic and application up and down the lineup. I'm sure the coaching staff would be really happy with the overall effort of the boys. I thought it was an outstanding, really, really polished, mature performance on the Sunday.
Yeah, I agree, Nathan. The opening goal aside, obviously after 30-some seconds, the thing I was looking for from the boys as a supporter was how they were going to bounce back and approach that first period after the disappointment of Saturday night. And again, the words I've got written down are application and effort. They had their feet moving. They were going after pucks in the O-zone, turning pucks over in the O-zone, and that was really encouraging to see. I would have imagined, again, the coaching staff would have been delighted with the way that the boys approached that first period. It would have been easy to sort of snooze through it and try and find their feet and build a basis from the second period onwards to try and eke out a win. But it was just good, honest, hard work from the first puck drop. So super impressed with the way the boys went about it on Saturday night in the early stages, Sunday night.
Yeah, and I think this is the type of game that really brings some of our strengths and our depth in our forward group to the fore. There weren't a lot of whistles in this game. There was a lot of 5-on-5 play. I think there was perhaps not even a handful of minor penalties in this game. I think there was maybe 3 penalties called in the entire game. And it really enabled us to roll our forward group at large.
Yeah.
And, I think we just smothered the Lightning. We were relentless. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a direct contrast to that of what we saw on Saturday, where the vast majority of the game was actually played on the special teams, where our special teams can be dangerous at both ends, but 5-on-5 is where we really do have that depth and strength in depth in numbers. And I think the way that this game unfolded, and certainly pairing that with the discipline that we showed, there was no real garbage in this game. It was just good, honest hockey. This is the style of game that really suits our group, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's just quickly recap the scoring in second. Logan Brody gets his second goal of the game from Dexter Moselle and Tyrell Clare. Finn Withy scores a goal, bit of a weird one. Took a weird, maybe a weird bounce off the ice, but shot from distance and got through. Louis Olive scored after assisting in the first period, assisted by Moselle and Brody. Kenshin Hayashi, he scores a goal, a nice little assist from Noah Moncrief and Dexter Moselle, and we end up closing out the second period with a 5-0 lead. And I think that second period, I think we won every 50-50 battle. And guys, the entire lineup, I thought that third line was really, really good. With Noah Moncrief, Alexander Wardlaw, Ruben Nalos was still on the third line at that stage. They were causing takeaways, they were forechecking hard. That second line, of course, was absolutely buzzing with Dexter Moselle and Louis Olive and Logan Brody. They were winning battles, and the top line as well. I thought Gustav Remler Jensen, I think he had about 5 key takeaways in the neutral zone. And it was, I think, one of our better, if not one of our best periods of the season. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to double down as the oldest man out of the three of us, and potentially the oldest man in the rink on Sunday night. I just wanted to tip my hat to Joey and Joey Braun and Espo. There was a shift that I watched Joey Braun dive to get the puck out of the zone. He was back on his feet and blocking a shot about 2 seconds later. And then he literally brought the boom and put some guy almost through the glass with a big body check on the same shift. So, good on you, Joey. And I also watched Espo skate between Colby and Hugo. And there was a half chance that Brisbane had a guy cruising into the slot, and Espo just about saw him over his shoulder, picked him up, and got under his stick, got a shoulder into him, and basically took the guy out of the play right on the doorstep. So, huge credit to those guys. They obviously haven't had a lot of ice time in the last few games, but I thought when they were on the ice, particularly skating with the young boys, they were really leading by example and showing, Hugo, Colby, and Ruben, what playing at AIHL level is all about.
I think, guys, this is perhaps a silly comment, but Sunday just felt like good Bears hockey. The performance on the ice really fed the crowd. The crowd were returning serve to the players. The energy level was right up, and there was a lot of blue collar in that performance as well. The guys potentially could have dropped their heads for Sunday. Coming off the back of Saturday, as I said, they weren't impressed. But the body language was down. There was a lot of disappointment. Turned up Sunday, reset, ready to go again, ready to battle. And from first puck drop right up until, Plymley with his fantastic celly, which I'm sure we'll cover that in a bit more detail. The entire body of work is something that playing group and the coaching staff should be very proud of. If we can apply those ingredients from here on out, we are going to be on the right side of the ledger more often than not. And from a spectator perspective, what an entertaining game it was. Yeah,
100%. And I think the crowd, I was kind of half listening because it's hard to listen to the crowd when you're doing the commentary with the headset. But you could hear the kind of World Cup style chants that were going on in the crowd. It felt like the loudest that I've heard it at Macquarie Ice Rink this year. It was an incredible atmosphere. The fans were having a real party during the game, and they were enjoying as you say. It was really nice to see the players being rewarded in that fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. And further to your point earlier, Gordy, that middle, particularly through the core of the game, certainly the second period, maybe even the back end of the first, I thought that middle six was absolutely fantastic. All the guys you mentioned, Noah Moncrief, Dexter Moselle, Logan Brody,
huge.
absolutely massive in this game.
Yeah.
And the battle. The battle was absolutely relentless.
Yeah, I thought Noah Moncrief had his best game of the season. And I know we're used to seeing him score goals, but he contributes in so many other ways, I think. And he was throwing his body around, whether it was in the neutral zone, on the forecheck. It was nice that he got rewarded with 2 assists. That's a spoiler alert because he got his second assist of the game in the third period. I thought he was excellent. And yeah, every single player, I think... Yeah, we've had the comment because I put out some graphics on some player accomplishments from the game and from the weekend that everyone, it was a big weekend for everyone, and there's not a player that you can look at, I think, on Sunday and say, I didn't notice you, I didn't notice what contribution you made. It felt like a real complete kind of performance.
I agree. And look, Noah's a big body. He's very fit. He's a strong kid for his size, and he does his best work in and around the net. When he's got an active stick and he's fighting for pucks and creating, a lot of chances, including second and third chances in and around the net. He's a nightmare for goaltenders. When he's hungry in and around the net, good things will happen. And I think it was correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the 5th goal, the last goal of the second period. There was initially Kenny in behind the net, and then Noah set the goal up for Kenny, and it was just good, honest, hard work. It was beating your man, winning pucks and utilising those opportunities, and it was just little moments like that are actually very meaningful for our group, because it's guys playing their role, it's guys taking opportunity, it's guys working hard. And not giving up in a battle. And I would have hated being a Brisbane Lightning player on Sunday. They just didn't get a sniff.
Yeah.
Not even.
And we talked about the fact that this season the Bears have struggled to close teams out and really keep the foot on the gas. The third period, we saw Lucas Herman score less than 2 minutes in. Then Kenny Hayashi gets his third goal of the season on the power play, assisted by both Brody and Moncrief. And then just 8 seconds later, the Hugo Arp scores his very first AIHL goal, assisted by Ruben Nalos and Tyrell Clare. 6:20 left, still a little bit of work to do. Dexton Moselle keeps his feet moving in the offensive zone and earns a power play, which I thought was key. We didn't score on the power play, but I thought it made it harder for Brisbane. I think everyone in the rink was understanding the moment and could see the scoreline and was just... I don't know about you guys, but those last few minutes, I was so nervous. Not just for Plymley, because I think a shutout, no doubt, it's a goaltender that has to be good. But I think a shutout is a team reward. And I was really hoping that the team could get to enjoy that.
And you saw how hard the boys were working to get it for Hayden, and how happy they were for him. So I think I mentioned to you, Nathan, in the game the last couple of minutes, how hard the boys were working to get Hayden that shutout. So congratulations, Hayden. Good on you, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Hugo's first goal in the AIHL, fantastic moment.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was particularly cool that he had a couple of his close buddies and guys that he's got a long-standing history of playing with. Guys like Ruben and Shuey. They were both out on the ice at the time. What a moment that was. And Matt, we were lucky enough to be right there.
Right there, yeah.
One of the most, one of my favourite moments in a long time. And then shortly after for Hayden to be surrounded by the team in that fashion, I think there was a lot of, they're almost symbolic moments, and they showcase, how close this group is, and how much each guy cares about the person next to him, and the fact that they enjoy each other's company and enjoy coming to the rink as a group and playing for each other. There was just some really nice moments throughout and certainly at the back end of that game.
Yep. I think as well. There's a few weird stats that don't matter that I'm gonna assault you guys with here. Logan Brody, the last 3 games against the Brisbane Lightning, including this one, has had an identical stat line of 2 goals and 2 assists in each of those 3 games. Kenshin Hayashi, he scored 3 goals this season. All of those goals have come against the Brisbane Lightning. Ruben Nalos scores his first goal of the season earlier against Brisbane. And then on Sunday, that was his first career multi-point game in the AIHL. I think it's been Finn Withy as well. He scored a goal on Sunday. He scored 6 on the season. 4 of his goals have been against the Brisbane Lightning. So the boys have had some success against Brisbane, and some of those were tough games at Boondall. But it was a really, I felt as complete a performance. And if you had like a little checkbox before the game and you're looking at all the things that you want, I think it pretty much satisfied all the criteria.
How good is he, Nathan?
Oh, absolutely unreal.
I mean, my weird stat would have been I had my first chicken pizza from Divide 8 in the rink, but yeah, I can't really compete with this man next to me.
And we had so many assists in this game. I tell you what, the best assist, and I've got to post it to our socials, is Matt delivering me some slices of chicken pizza, beautiful Divide 8 chicken pizza during the 3rd period, which I tried to sneak a bite or 2 during play, just couldn't get it done effectively. But post-game, that was the best post-game bite. It was, so shout out to Matt.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Dex, all seriousness, Dex had 4 assists. I was accused by a couple of the boys in the Governor afterwards of being the chairman of the Tyrell Clare fan club. But Nathan, his second assist on Logan's goal is a very, very pretty goal. Our second of the game. Tyrell won a puck battle up against the boards. Spinorama move, complete width of the ice pass to Dex. And then Dex went, far post for Logan to score. So that assist for me was much better than me serving you up 3 slices of chicken. But thanks for the shout out, mate.
I was going to clip that and play it on repeat, I assure you.
Tyrell Clare, just quietly, he is coming up to 100 career AIHL points. He's on 94. So he's got 6 points left. He's had, in 15 games, he's had 9 assists, which is very tidy for him. And another guy that we've got to keep a watch on potentially for this week is Lucas Herman, who is on 98 career AIHL points with 39 goals, 59 assists. But we will get into that before we start previewing next week's games. Any final thoughts that you would like to mention?
Best Sunday night out I've had in a long time, and I was at some cracking games at Wrigley Field a month ago, so that's saying something, boys. Well done. That's
a pretty steep benchmark, so we'll definitely take that. I agree. Sunday in the rink had such a great energy to it, and sure, there were goals scored, all the things that we've spoken about already, but it was such a great feeling to walk out of that rink on Sunday. I think everyone in the building would have had a fantastic time. Another sellout, packed house. We had a lot of sponsors and partners in the crowd. I spoke to Hugo's parents after the game. It was really nice to see them share an embrace with Hugo. Once he came out of the locker room, that was a very nice moment. Also a shout out to Brian Chambers' family who were out here from the States. They really enjoyed their weekend at Macquarie. There was certainly a really positive vibe in the rink. And there was actually just one player that I haven't mentioned that I had on my list. Kenny Hayashi. Kenny has been huge. The last 5 or 6 games, Kenny has been massive. He's played a lot of minutes. He's playing out of position on D. Well, not necessarily out of position, but certainly not his, the position that he's most familiar with. We've thrown a pretty big task to him, over the course of, the last month or so. And he's done such a great job, and particularly over the last probably couple of weeks, to be fair, I think he's been a real standout for us. He's helped us get up ice. He's been creating plays. He really has contributed at both ends. So a huge shout out to him as well.
Yeah, and he spent some games where he started the game on D and then moved to forward
Yeah, exactly.
due to things that have happened, and that's incredibly, that's just a different challenge. So and he's done really well. He hasn't looked out of place at all, and good on him. I was happy to see him get 2 good goals on Sunday.
He's just a hockey player. He's a very versatile guy. We've obviously already highlighted his skating ability in the last few weeks, but he certainly has an ability to contribute offensively. He's a heads-up player. He sees the ice well. Veteran guy. Everyone loves playing with him, so it's been really enjoyable watching him make such an impact.
So let's move on. Let's preview next week's games, and after this weekend in the standings, we're 4th, which is where we started the weekend. But the Canberra Brave have made ground on us. We're on 30 points. There's 3 teams stuck on 30 points. Sydney Ice Dogs in 3rd with a game in hand. We played 17. Canberra Brave have played 18. They're on 30. We've got the Mustangs just behind, and then the Melbourne Ice on 28 points. Central Coast Rhinos on 26. If you look at our schedule for the rest of the season, we've got 13 games left. We do not play a team who is more than 3 points outside of a playoff spot right now. So it's a tough road, and it begins this weekend with a tough home and away series against the Canberra Brave, who are right behind us, tied on points. Boy, what are we thinking, Matt, for this one?
Great weekend for a boys' trip, I think. No, Saturday's going to be fun, and certainly going to be a tough task. I think if the boys approach the start of the game with that same effort and application, Nathan, that we talked about seeing on Sunday, it's going to stand us in really good stead. Obviously, the Brave are a very, very strong side, and there's that Sydney-Canberra rivalry. But I think we chatted to some of the players, and there was a comment around home and home series being big boys hockey. It certainly feels like it's going to be a big boys weekend.
Yeah, I think so. Probably somewhat similar to Melbourne Ice, from the perspective of they've built their team later in the season. Not too dissimilar to seasons of the past. They've got all of their troops now. They've got a very, very dangerous offensive unit. We all know what the Brave, fixtures bring. I think this is a massive weekend. Probably for both teams. It's almost like we're sitting in a very similar situation in terms of how the rest of the season needs to unfold for both teams. I think we equal on points. Did you say, Gordy?
Yeah, equal on points.
Equal on points. We've got a game in hand on them, but they, like us, would have pretty high aspirations for the season. And now that we're getting into the business end, these fixtures almost feel like 6-point games, to be honest.
Yeah, they do. And Canberra's won 6 of their past 7 games, so they are, if not the form team of the competition, they're thereabouts. And they were at 9th in the standings at one stage before this run. And we all knew it was coming. As you mentioned, we've seen it before. They get their imports in late, and then they make a dash for it. This one feels huge. We've got some former Sydney Bears on the Canberra Brave as well. You mentioned Jake Ratcliffe earlier. How much does that add to a rivalry like this, Nathan? Not just for fans and for management and others, but for the players as well.
Yeah, look, I think the rivalry with the Brave, both probably on and off ice, to be fair, and it's a healthy rivalry, is certainly well noted. I think those personal relationships that our group has with probably the majority of theirs as well. You factor in not just the ex-Bears, but certainly, a lot of their senior guys who have played, at respective, representative levels over many years. There's certainly a high degree of familiarity between the two squads. And certainly a big shout out to those ex-Bears, Jake Ratcliffe, Scotty Clemmy, Tommy Stephen. I know I'm missing someone, Carson Miller also as an import. There's certainly a lot of ingredients here that make for a really spicy weekend ahead. Their fans travel very well to Sydney. The same with ours. I'd expect both rinks to be jumping, and these are big time fixtures now at this point of the season.
Matt?
Agreed. Yeah, it's going to be huge. And looking forward to both games.
Yep. Yeah, so we will. I'll be calling the game from the rink live this Saturday, which will be nice. I always love being at the rink. And then Sunday, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to do a boys trip down, the three of us. We're going to head down to AIS. We're going to check out the rink there. Talking to. We'll have the interviews that we'll post up in some format, but Dexter Moselle said, it's a rink that we haven't played in yet. He's looking forward to that experience and, getting things done at home first and then taking it to them on the road. So it should be as Matt mentioned as well, big boy hockey.
Absolutely. To any of our fans who are thinking about going down, provided that there are tickets left, I'm not sure if there are. It's an excellent venue to watch, our league, be showcased in. They do a great job down there. It's a really good production. Probably the closest you're going to get to sort of true bowl seating and configuration down there. And to see our boys, hopefully pull some points out of Canberra, that'd sort of finish it off nicely. So if you are thinking of getting down, obviously the game at Macquarie is sold out. But if there are tickets left for the AIS, which there may not be, but if there are, I would highly recommend taking the trip. It's certainly a good spectacle down there as well.
And now I'm going to go a little bit off board here. We got some lovely questions from Jules. We met some people post game at the Governor, both on Saturday and Sunday, and at the rink, who came up and said how much they love the pod. And I think Matt, you mentioned.
Yeah, shout out to Colin. He grabbed me and told me he'd been listening to us in the car, I think. And Laura, Georgia, and Nikisha, they're very new to the sport. They stood behind us, Nathan, on Saturday and asked me some questions about the game and told me that they listened to the pod. So that's awesome. And please do say hi to us if you see us around, either on Saturday or Sunday in Canberra.
And
people are actually listening. That's fantastic.
I mean, it cost me
a
lot of money to get them to say that to me.
Of course,
but we'll take it, right?
Absolutely, we will.
But
Nothing a few beers from the Bears bar can't fix, that's for sure.
We did get a lovely email with a bunch of questions, and the strategy is we're going to ask some players and coaches to answer some of these, but there's one that I'd like to ask you, Nathan. Sorry to put you on the spot here, but Jules, no, I'm not actually. Jules says. Jules asked, with the imports, how does that come about? Are we scouting for players in other countries, or do they have agents who reach out to Aussie teams? Can you provide a bit of insight on that?
We could probably do a whole podcast on this, but the summary would be that it is a mix of a lot of different things. So it's a mix of, referrals from, both, playing networks, Bears alumni, direct approach, certainly dealing with agents can come into play. Sometimes players approach us. So it's quite a mixed bag. I would say traditionally, if I'm to sort of try and piece this together in a really simple fashion, most of our recruitment has been done either by via referral networks, or us just simply running direct campaigns and reaching out to players direct to sort of get a feel for their levels of interest in coming down here in obviously what is their off season typically.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Maybe we should do an episode in the off season just about import recruitment.
Absolutely. Look, I think one thing that I would say for the average fan that is listening, the job that personnel within teams are doing on the recruitment front is huge. Most teams are starting their recruitment activities probably late in the calendar year. Maybe even as early as late September or October. And typically that doesn't really cease until perhaps the week that's just gone by. Rosters in this league need to be set come July 1, and that's quite a large window for teams to be engaging with the marketplace, etc. So there's in any given team there's typically 1, 2, maybe 3 people that are that have coverage from a recruitment perspective. It is a big job. There's a lot of things that need to come together and ducks that need to align to actually get guys out here participating in the season and committed for the season. When different leagues are restarting up, there's a lot of different moving parts to that. There's agents that have got their opinions on things. There's different reporting dates attached to different leagues and different programs. So there are quite a number of moving parts to it, and there's an enormous amount of work that gets conducted across the league in clubland to try and get the best players out here to put a show on for the fans.
And there's only so many phone calls that Darren Ferris and Alan Walsh will take from you.
That's exactly right. Everyone's got a quota, and you've got to make it count. You seem to know it well. Maybe you can jump aboard next season, Matty.
Mate, I'm warming up on the touchline. Let me know when you want to throw me in.
I doubt you want to work alongside me, let me tell you.
Well, on that note, with that bombshell, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Let's just go back to back here. Let's get as many bodies as we can down at the AIS. Cheer the boys home. Let's take some points, back up the highway to Sydney, and continue the generally high level of momentum that I feel like we've built over the last couple of weeks.
Well said.
Yeah, beautiful, great. Well, thank you as always for listening. Thanks for your support. Keep an eye out on socials as well. We did get some post-game interviews from players and the coaching staff. We will be finding a way to release them. I think this episode has already gone long enough. We appreciate your patience. Give us a follow. Share us your thoughts. We really appreciate it. And until then, go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.